the entertainment highlight of the week.
Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good day.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good tidings.
Good gravy.
Good gracious.
Good Halloween. Can you say that? I'm saying it.
He's saying it. Oh, goodness.
Loch Ness. Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show, Halloween edition. Well, it's sort of Halloween. We're covering a Halloween-y thing. It's good enough.
We're recording it on
what is it we
Halloween,
do on the Benji and Nick Show?
Oh, well, we talk about cult television and television, really. I can't remember your phraseology. Things from the past.
Things from the
things
past.
Things that you've forgotten. Things you'd rather forget.
Well, yeah.
Things with a small raffia base attachment.
Sort of
or something.
bit on the side. Things of.
And we talk about it. We either set ourselves... there's no either in it because there's more than two choices. We set ourselves... a TV program to watch or a film to watch between podcasts and the next time we talk about it, or sometimes we do a bit of commentary, usually Doctor Who, in fact exclusively Doctor Who so far. We're in the middle of doing Pyramids of Mars, aren't we?
What a story that is. What a cracker Pyramids of Mars is.
Yeah, it sort of leads into what we're talking about this week. Also we talk about sometimes what we're watching in general, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but so yes, and what we're talking about this week is the Skull.
The Skull, an old Amicus horror film with two absolute horror greats in it, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. But before we get on to that one, I'm not Nick.
Oh yes, and I'm not Benji.
Just thought I'd introduce who we are.
That's a really good point, yes. We'll also be reading out your emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com and chatting for no good reason to Jamie, son of Jerry Anderson, if we can raise him from beyond or on the phone. But since it's Halloween, I thought I'd go all horrific.
A lot easier, isn't it, really?
Yes. At the end of the podcast, my son Ben Briggs will be giving us his final chat about something or other. He's 10 years old, so expect unconventional insights. I just have a quick look on Facebook before we go to the emails, because I mentioned that we were doing the Skull. Alex Pass said Skull Vision, freaky stuff, which is he's done a gif of Peter Cushing as viewed from inside the skull of the Marquis de Sade. Also, he said, would you like a jelly baby? No, I don't suppose you would. With Tom Baker and the skull from Image of the Fendal.
The other Skull movie.
And what does IIRC stand for?
IIRC? I don't know, actually. IIRC.
It all goes a bit Kafka with the surreal nightmare scenes, says Tom Hodden about the skull. Yeah, Simon Frisbee says...
Bonkers, sorry, it's bonkers. Carry on.
What does IIRC stand for? I've seen it so much.
An acronym for If I Recall Correctly. Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does.
Yes. I thought you'd know, being a young person.
No, I'd never use it.
Simon Frisbee says, for me, Amicus's best film. It is said that Milton Subotsky's script only ran to 40 minutes, so director Freddie Francis had to add all the scenes of the skull gloating around, etc., to make up to the required running length. That I can believe. Jenny Shirt says, which TV programme moment scared you the most? Well, that's an interesting question.
Oh, gosh. That is a really interesting moment, isn't it?
As a kid, it was the lady being aged to death in Time Slip, the Icebox story. Yeah, which
I want to say, actually, maybe it was Children of the Stones. Actually, that bit when the because it was all the noises, but you know the bit when the woman, they see the stone in the road and there's a woman standing there, and I remember being really freaked out by that. I remember thinking that, oh god, that's a bit nasty, isn't it? So that was the first thing that came to mind, but I don't know. I'm sure there was probably something far more horrifying.
I mean, as an adult, it's not a TV moment. Although I saw it on my TV, it was a film, The Road. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, it's deeply upsetting. An apocalypse has happened, and a father and son are left to survive in a world where basically people can only eat each other in order to live. It's an amazing film, and I can never see it again. And I still have nightmares about it. Yeah. It's up there with Schindler's List of being sort of unbearable suffering. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some films like that. I think there are some films you can only watch once. And it's kind of good to only watch them once for the impact of them, if it were. So
yes.
It's only something that just came to mind, actually. I wouldn't say it was scary, but I remember I was always really unnerved by it. In the Daleks Invasion of Earth TV version, not the movie, they had that music in like the first couple of episodes with the organs, all that stuff. I remember that really frightened me, and I remember in a weird way it frightened me a little bit because it was sort of how do I put this in a way that it wasn't particularly very good production values, and even the Dalek voices didn't sound particularly good. There was something incredible.
Stop! I can hear you.
We are the masters of Earth. Not known. But I think because it was sort of it was so unfamiliar because it wasn't something that felt comfortable. That I found that quite
off his
unnerving.
coat.
Oh, it's horrible. There's something incredibly dry about it and sinister.
Yes.
And all that business of like when that music when they're coming, they're with the bombs don't work scenes, and the doctor's being carried out of the ship. Really frightening. All that horrible music, and the guy getting shot, the drain. I don't know if you see. Yeah. He's
the
like
guy being shot to the drain.
He's like he's climbing down a manhole, and then the Dalek exterminates him, and it's really graphic and horrible. They're just like immediate thoughts of sort of the horror that come to my mind, really.
Yes. Funnily enough, for me, another film thing. I saw this in the cinema. Perhaps this is a controversial thought, but one of the worst films ever made, Signs by M. Night Shyamalan.
Terrible film.
However, even though it is a ridiculously bad movie, it's got two of the most scary things I've ever seen in it. There's one bit where they're watching the television and suddenly you get sight of one of these aliens just walking past. Just a very dark form and turning around. And it absolutely frightened the life out of me. And then later on when they're stuck inside the house, maybe down in the cellar or something, and suddenly you become aware that sort of these horrible sort of hands are trying to grab them. That was scary as well, which reminds me that reminded me of the bit from the Abominable Snowman movie, the Nigel Neal adaptation of Nigel Neal's TV thing. And there's that bit where the guy's in the tent and you hear this rustling sound and these long fingernailed hands sort of come in and take their guns and bend them all over. And then when the Abominable Snowmen arrive at the end, have you seen this movie?
Yeah, I saw this years ago, but yeah.
And they walk really close to the camera and there's a sort of William Shatner style slit light over their eyes,
Yeah.
And they just look so ancient but I'm just getting the hairs on the back of my neck are going crazy just remembering it now.
It's like funny standout sorts of memories. It's like when you mentioned the hand then, and I immediately thought of the hand at the end of the original War of the Worlds, and it coming out of the spaceship and kind of doing that and then settling, And,
you mean the American one?
The American one, yeah.
Yes, the George Powell movie, yes.
Things like that, I mean, even in modern films there are some things which unnerve me. Things like, funny enough, the other War of the Worlds, the new one, which people pan, but I think was actually quite a good film.
No, it's a great movie. I've watched it several times.
But the bit when
it always works well when Tom Cruise is playing someone who's meant to be a bit of a, if you pardon the word, dick.
Yeah, absolutely. And
his character is a loser, and he plays it brilliantly. It's when you're supposed to love him and think that he's great and perfect that it never works, because Tom Cruise has that sort of strange edge to his screen persona where you never quite trust him. He doesn't seem like a trustworthy person.
He's a flawed
I'm sure
character.
He is personally, of course. Yeah, flawed. That's what it is. And I think he's great in that movie.
I think it's a really good film. The film
What's your
itself,
scary bit from that?
The bit that I would say that unnerved me, that I always remember, is the bit when you see the clothes in the river. When they look and that has that horrible music
and they're fluttering across the skies.
They're fluttering across the skies, and there's like the clothes / bodies in the river and stuff, and you just kind of think, just remember that they all just go past, and it's horrifying because the children see it as well in that.
Yes.
And I remember that being like, this is just really, really hot. I'll have to watch that again. I might watch that tonight.
Well, because the thing they do with their version of the heat ray in that movie is that it just turns people to dust instantly.
And they, like in the running scene, they run. People behind have to run through the dust, don't they?
And when Tom Cruise gets back home with the kids, they say, "What's all that on your face and your hair?" And he realises it's just the remnants of other people, which is a horrifying moment, which he plays brilliantly, I thought. But he's an incredible actor, actually. He's brilliant at all that stuff.
I think he is. He's very good, and he's very good in that film. And that film in particular, I think he's great. I love him in things like Top Gun and even Mission Impossible. He's great in. But that film, he's great, as you say, because that's his territory, isn't it? He's very good. Yeah, but I really want to watch that now. I love the noise they make as well.
Yeah.
Great. I remember buying that film on DVD when it's sort of gone out of fashion, but when like you used to have the 5.1 speakers around the room. It was like a real early 2000s thing where everybody had to have the surround sound. I remember having it turned up really, really, really loud. And then when the heat ray noise came, it absolutely scared the bejesus out of me. It was so loud. Oh man, because it just comes out the blue, doesn't
noise
it?
Like?
I think it was just sort of like. I think it was just your generic kind of. Yeah, and I think it just sort of comes out. They all start running, don't they? They all start very slowly back off, and then they start to run, and then that woman's running, and it just goes, and then she turns to dust, and you see her face. It just did that. There's a little like sort of. If you freeze the frames, you can see her face, sort of halfway between being a human in the dust with her mouth open. Horrible, dark and nasty, but great film.
It is Halloween. Do you want to read an email?
Yeah, I'd love to read an email. So this one here is the subject of this one is the Benji and Nick Show, now with added Ben. And this is from our good pal Alex Parts, sent at 22:11 on the 27th of the 10th, 2019, sent from the future. It says here, loving the Ben Briggs extras at the end of the latest run of podcasts. I wonder if we'll be getting Ben's own opinions on Pyramids of Mars, or maybe Death to the Daleks, or Revenge of the Cybermen. Also, will Ben be giving us a Halloween special review, perhaps The Curse of Fenric? Oh, I love that story. Just imagine. P.S. No.
I can't remember what he's talking about, but it's not The Curse of Fenric.
Plus P.S. Looking forward to your views on Peter the Cakes Cushing horror film The Skull. Freaked me out something awful when I first saw it late at night many years ago. Enjoy, Big L. Alias the Marquis de Sade Git.
This is one from a while ago, actually, that we somehow skipped over. This is called Random Nonsense from John G. Wood. Dear Benji and Nick. Oh, it was sent on the 28th of September in the year 1507. Dear Benji and Nick, I've just listened to part one of the recap of which swear words are allowed in the podcast. Very handy. And I had a couple of comments on the chat with Jamie. First, if you fancy listening to interesting presentations of boring topics, do you remember we talked about that?
Yeah, brilliant.
I thoroughly recommend The Boring Talks, which can be downloaded from BBC Sounds. You can listen to people's thoughts on wooden pallets. Oh, I drive past a place with loads of wooden pallets on my way to Dorchester. Yellow Lines and the Argos catalogue.
That's my one straight away. I'd love to
pick a few.
Check out the Argos catalogue.
My favourite so far, though, has to be the episode on gasometers. Well,
I tell you, that's just made me think of something that happened this week. I went into the cupboard under the stairs to go and get my bag, and I looked up. And the gas meter had completely changed to a digital one.
Good Lord.
I looked up and I thought, what? And I thought that was because we had a really old gas meter. Yeah, and apparently the bloke just came in and changed it one day. Like they do that. But like, it was, when people come in and say, "I'll just check your meter," you don't expect them to say, "I'll just take your meter and change it with this one." Yeah, I was completely thrown.
I thought that gasometers, I suppose gasometers are the things that read your gas, but I thought they were... Hold on.
Like the big gasworks, the huge.
Yeah,
sort of big
yeah, that's
things.
what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I love
That's
those.
what
I
I'm
love the gasworks.
Exactly.
There's not enough gasworks around. I like there's something very. You feel very, reassured when you see gasworks. You're in a hive of industry.
I've sent you an image of a gasometer. Actually, it's an empty one I've sent you.
Where? Oh yes, here we go. Oh, great! I like that.
It's gone. Yeah, they go up and down depending on how much gas is in them, don't they?
Do they?
Yes. Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought they just stayed the same shape.
No, they
get higher.
You can see that one's empty. Yeah, it goes up and down in that frame. Yeah.
In the front. Oh, yeah.
That framework around the outside. Yeah.
God, I never knew that. That's amazing. That's really, really interesting.
John also says that he was excited to hear our thoughts on the Secret Service.
Well, there's a whole podcast of it now, isn't there?
Yes, I promise not to get too upset if you trash it. I still love it. Oh, yes, with deep joy. Goodly byload, John. Doing a little bit of the Reverend Stanley Unwinnies there.
I don't think we trashed it too much. I think we were very reasonable. I think we gave it what it deserved.
And we got Jamie Anderson in to give it some
gusto.
Authority.
That's it. We weren't like, this is terrible. We were kind of like, this isn't great, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, there were many good things about it, weren't there?
Non-offensive bit of telly in it, really. Good bit of fun.
I think I can say that I wasn't offended by it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I was completely affronted by the Secret Service.
I'm a representative for Suitcases International. I felt that was an unrealistic portrayal of a suitcase with a miniature man inside.
Yes, there are no men inside our suitcases.
Yes, well, unless they're cut up and put in there, which that's actually against the law. So don't.
Yes, it is Halloween.
Don't do that. It's Halloween. Yeah, you can justify this foul talk. John Levine almost in Star Trek, says Anthony Zahetner. That sounds like a quote, doesn't it? That sounds like the opening of the news, doesn't it?
John Levine almost in Star Trek.
John Levine almost in Star Trek, says Anthony Zahetner. So, talking today to Anthony. Is it the truth? I don't know. So this one was sent at 5:46 in the morning. What were you doing up that early? It must be a milkman. 23rd of the 9th, 2019. It says here, hi chaps, following on from Benji's continuing and probably more than 5-year mission in all things Star Trek. According to John Levine's biography, Run the Shadows, Walk the Sun, he was shortlisted and almost cast in Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Family, as Jean-Luc Picard's brother.
I think he means
it must be
Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc Picard. Jean-Luc. If this came to pass, John would have been one of the select few to have been in both franchises. Also, apparently, every classic series Doctor Who actor to have played the lead part is listed in the end of season 1 episode The Neutral Zone, which reintroduced the Romulans.
It's true, it's in a graphic. Yeah.
It's very clever, isn't it? Very good.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you knew this and any comments.
It's true, I did know it. Yes, I saw a freeze frame of it. They're all listed. Yeah.
We were trying to work out the other day, me and my friend, as to if there's an actor that has been in the Trinity, the Holy Three, Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Star Wars. If somebody's been in them all, and we were trying to think, and it depends how you count it, but I'm pretty sure David Warner. I think he did a Star Wars game.
Did he?
Video. I think here we go, David Warner. Yes, he played a character. He did a voice for Star Wars Force Commander. Obviously, he's been in Big Finish.
Star Wars Force Commander.
He played Grand General Malkor Brashin in that. Of course, he's been in a million Star Treks, and he's also been in dozens of Big Finish and an episode on the telly of Doctor Who. So that makes him, I think, one of the few to have done it all.
Wow, I think, he's certainly the one who's done Star Trek and Doctor Who. Is there anyone else who's done Star Trek and Doctor Who on the telly Doctor Who? I think there are a few people who've done Big Finish Doctor Who who've been in Star Trek.
Let's have a look. Star Trek and Doctor Who.
Like Chase Masterson, for example.
So, William Morgan Shepherd, Star Trek and Doctor Who actor. So
that's true,
yeah. So that's an interesting one. So,
yeah, I'd forgotten about him.
So we've got him. We've got who else? There must be others. There's surely. Here we go. Den of Geek coming to the rescue here. 10 actors with roles in both Doctor Who and Star Trek. So Daphne Ashbrook, she's in DS9.
Of course she is. Yes.
This is
had a rubber mask on, didn't she?
This is a really obscure one I like here. John Franklin Robbins. The opening scene of Doctor Who story Genesis of the Daleks sees the Doctor confronted by a Time Lord in a cowl, played by John Franklin Robbins.
That's true.
We
foresee a time when all other life forms... Yes.
I love his outfit in that. He also was in Star Trek Next Generation episode Preemptive Strike.
He was, yes, I remember now. Gosh.
So, yeah, I love to see stuff like this. Just a great... It's just worth reading these out, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Barry Ingham appeared opposite William Hartnell as Paris in Doctor Who The Mythmakers. Obviously, of course, was Aladon in the movie.
Doctor in the Daleks.
Was in the Next Generation Up the Long Ladder episode. Christopher Neame as Skagra. Do we count that?
Don't know.
This is the thing. Do you count Sharda?
I suppose you do. What did he do in Star Trek then?
He played in Voyager episode Heroes and Demons, and was in the 2-part Enterprise episode Stormfront.
Oh.
We've not got an original series link yet though, which is interesting. I'd love that. We've got Simon Pegg, who was in the movies, of course, and that. But do we count the movies? I mean, I'm not counting the films. I'm not counting those movies. It's just I don't know. I mean, yes, franchises. Maurice Roves played Stoltz in Caves of Androzani. Star Trek Next Generation as a Romulan captain in the episode The Chase.
He was also in when 8 Bells Toll.
Yes, he was.
The helicopter pilot.
Yes, you're completely correct. We're near the end now, don't worry with these. Deep Roy, Mr. Sin and Talons of Wen Chiang.
Yeah.
And obviously others. That's the movie he was in. Mark Sheppard, who we've mentioned, I think.
Yeah.
And David Warner here.
What did Mark Sheppard do in Star Trek?
He was in Star Trek.
His dad was in
Star Trek Voyager episodes Collective and Child's Play.
Right, and he was also in the Silence episode, wasn't he? Something about the moon, or
and a Battlestar as well.
Yeah, I knew he was in He was very annoying in Battlestar Galactica. When he turned up, I thought, what on earth is this character to do with anything? And then you meet the guy, and he's a very forthright person. He probably told them, yes, I'm going to play this part wearing dark glasses for no good reason.
Well, why not? Well, the last one we've got here is also, if we can take the other stuff as well, Guy Siner.
Of course.
Was in Genesis of the Daleks, another link there. Stuart Reed in the Enterprise episode Silent Enemy, Babylon 5, and several Star Wars video games. So he joins the pantheon that David Warner joins as well.
Our battle cry will be the total extermination of the Thals!
We'll wipe the map clean of the Thals! So good. He's great in that first episode.
And then the Doctor whacks him on the hand, doesn't he?
Yeah. And what are you going to do with me? Something like that, doesn't he? He holds his hand and looks slightly upset about it all. He's great in that, though. He was really, really good. I'll never forget the moment of when I saw that when I was young, the moment of absolute disbelief when he crops up in a lower low.
Yes,
I was like, it's the bloke from Genesis of the Daleks. Madness.
Being a less threatening Nazi. Yes. We've got some PSs here.
Anthony just continues here briefly. Who knew that Jamie Anderson was such an interesting guy, even when he tries not to be? Yeah, well,
what
he
was
collects
talking about?
letterboxes, doesn't he? That's his interesting.
What was he
hobby.
talking about?
Can't
But you can't
remember.
can you?
Can't remember.
No, can't remember. It was that interesting.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the boring podcast, he was talking about. He did answer a question on that one about.
He did, yeah.
The human mind, wasn't it?
Yeah, or something
It's
like
the
that.
mind.
By Jamie Anderson.
PPS, I thought Nick missed an opportunity to explain his ring modulator settings, though I'm sure someone out there would be taking notes. Be on a post-it bit of paper in Television Centre. PSSS, whatever happened to the fallout regarding the Galactic Tour / Moonbase Alpha website that Big Finish promoted before Space 1999 was announced? Many signed up though it all seems to have been forgotten. Maybe ask Jamie about this in the next video call.
I think someone got something. I can't remember what it was. I'll ask about that.
Got a damn good... Yeah. They got what's coming to them.
Yes.
There we go. Well, thanks for your emails. It's always lovely to hear from so many people. Keep them coming in. Send them to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. We'd love to hear from you. It's really a main feature of the podcast. It's so lovely to talk to people and hear your views on the world of cult telly. So, thank you very much.
So, let us proceed to The Skull.
Yes.
This was your suggestion.
It was a film, you know, it's one of those films. It's not a masterpiece like some of the more well-known Hammer films and things like that. I mean, but then my views are different. You know, I love Dracula Prince of Darkness, and a lot of people think that that's a really rubbish film, which I disagree. I just say it's different. But I like this Amicus film, The Skull. I think it's great because you see Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee together in a really wonderful kind of gothic, dark film. I think it's dark in some places and really all about the occult and Yakult yogurts. And it's really good. But yeah, I saw this a few years ago and I just enjoyed it. It doesn't change the world, but it's a cracker, I think.
Well, I mean, I think if I can make a sweeping generalisation that will offend many people, these the Hammer and Amicus horror movies, although they're quite different in flavour, but they also have similarities between the two of them. They are really trashy, aren't they?
Definitely.
There's nothing subtle about them, although they are made quite often with such skill and have actors in them like Peter Cushing and, to a certain extent, Christopher Lee, although I think Peter Cushing, controversially, I think Peter Cushing is a far better actor than Christopher Lee. I think Christopher Lee has a sort of intimidating face and voice, and that's what he largely deploys, whereas with Peter Cushing, there's far more thought process going on there, it seems to me, anyway. That may be a bit too controversial.
No,
but they have all these incredibly talented people working on it, which sort of elevates it to something that, you know, like The Skull has all sorts of really incredibly noteworthy shots, doesn't it? And that are held for quite some time. You kind of think, well, that's sort of quite artistic, that. But that said, I'm not a huge fan of horror movies as such. That's not to say that I hate them, but you know what I mean? I don't naturally think, oh, good, a horror movie. But I quite like these trashier, less affecting versions of horror because they're not likely to make me bring my dinner up, you know. I mean, some of the more modern stuff is... I'm
not bothered with all that. The modern horror films, I think there are two kind of different things. Modern horror films now are very gory and they want to scare you and they want to disgust you and they want to repulse you and shock you and leave you completely and utterly fearful. Whereas these older horror films were much more about what I think we were talking about earlier about Halloween, and weren't we, Nick? Together, we were talking about the fact that, you know, it's lost a bit of its atmosphere. And I love all the tropes. I love all the haunted houses. I love all the thunder and lightning and graveyards and mist and witches.
Yes.
And, you know, witches and murderers and stuff like that. All this sort of things that what it's all about. And so I think with these old school horror films, what they lack in, what, you know, essentially sophistication, certainly in a lot of the writing, I think they make up for with just great atmosphere, great music and great acting, and and a classy. They're always set in interesting time settings. I mean, this one, interestingly enough, is mostly in the modern day. I would say the modern day of when
or the modern day 1965. Yes.
Yeah, which looks ancient in this film, but of course it does go back to earlier on in the timeline. But it still looks somewhat classy, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Rich colours and all that. Looks absolutely beautiful. Sumptuous, really. There's an interesting sort of narrative trick where, in order to start the film off with something more interesting than Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing attending an auction, which is what is the real beginning of the story, they take what is later presented as a flashback to a chap cutting off the head of the body, the skull of the Marquis de Sade, the famous insane person who tortured and sadist. Yes, that's what he was famous for. I once saw a drama about him at the Edinburgh Fringe, which was a fairly unpleasant experience, that particular drama. Quite effective.
Drama of the Marquis de Sade.
You completely made me lose my thread there. I've lost my thread.
I've lost my thread.
That's a quote from the Nebulous series I did. But anyway, talking of Nebulous, of course, Mark Gatiss, a friend of mine, is a huge fan of horror. So I always feel bad, just in case he's listening, when I'm not so enthusiastic about horror. I do love all this old horror stuff, though, but it's not my favourite thing. I was taken by, because it's an Amicus picture, just like Doctor Who and the Daleks, how similar the credits were. It was like the same font and same.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, same colour, even that sort of strange orangey brown colour for the sort of just done on the Amicus factory line, and Milton Subotsky and who's the other chap?
Milton Subotsky and
the other producer, the same executive producer. Milton Subotsky wrote the screenplay, and I think Jenny Shirt, messaging into our Facebook page, the Nicholas Briggs official one, I think she's probably it was Simon Frisby who said that, wasn't it? Simon Frisby said that the script only ran to 40 minutes, and I can believe that, because there's a heck of a lot of staring at a skull and staring out of a skull from the skull's point of view at things. And that whole final sequence of Peter Cushing being compelled to do some kind of satanic rites thing with the Pentecost. What is it called? No, the star thing.
It's almost like a spirit board, isn't it? But it's more of a pentagram in that
pentagram. That's
aspect,
the word I'm struggling to find through my inanity and ignorance. All that sequence, and going to kill his wife, then not killing his wife, and then going back to kill his wife, and then finally, spoiler alert, killing himself, which becomes so inevitable. That there's no script there, is there? This is all Freddie Francis, the director, coming up with stuff.
But I mean, it sort of works in a way. It's that one could interpret it as him trying to fight the will of the skull.
Oh, well, no, that's exactly what it is. But it just seems, I did want to do the Holy Grail voice of God.
Get on with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is a bit of that in this. It sort of comes down to what you'd imagine is probably the conclusion we'd all expected anyway, for it to be left open. Interestingly enough, there is actually some strange link that I was reading about this, is that in real life the Marquis de Sade's body was exhumed from its grave in the grounds of a lunatic asylum, where he died in 1814. His skull was removed for analysis, and then it was suddenly lost, and it's never been found ever again. So there is a rather wonderful sort of thing of this. The mystery of the skull is real. Obviously, I'm sure it doesn't float around killing people. Although, who knows? Maybe it does. Maybe it does.
You see, that's something that always irritates me about horror, that there's quite often not a logic to what's happening, because it's all unknowable and weird. And, this skull, the things it can and can't do seem there seem to be no hard and fast rules about what it can and can't do. Sometimes it vanishes and just appears somewhere, and then there's that lovely sequence where it smashes through the
Yeah, I know what you mean.
cabinet.
Actually, there's no level of kind of like what is it you do? Because then surely, you know, if it can just disappear and reappear, then it wouldn't bother to smash the glass. But then maybe it wanted to scare everybody, you know. I love that little cross he has as well that folds out, sort of.
Yes, spontaneously.
And then you get the fun little, the really reassuring, nice organ
Church
music
organ
playing,
noise every time Christianity is referenced. All things bright and beautiful. No, it doesn't do that.
But you get
great performances. Sorry,
I love. I was about to bring that up and say great performances all round in this, isn't there? Really.
There's a pivotal scene between Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee when they're playing billiards or pool. I can't remember which it is. I don't know the difference between the two games. They involve big sticks hitting coloured balls. Big sticks hitting little sticks. No, that's not what it involves. They're having a stick fight. Anyway, it's just a lovely scene between the two of them discussing stuff, and it's just such a pleasure to watch the two classy actors doing a lovely bit of acting in amongst all this very loud music, horror nonsense. I would say about the music in this film, they certainly know when to stop it. They have a lot of music, and then sometimes in the build up to things, like in the flashback sequence where the executor of the scientist's will gets taken over by the skull and kills the scientist's mistress. There's a whole section where it suddenly goes dead quiet.
Yes.
And when you've had a lot of music, scary music, and suddenly it goes dead quiet, it has the beautiful effect of you suddenly thinking, oh no, this is going to be serious. And then these people really knew their trade. Freddie Francis, what else has Freddie Francis directed? Because I'm sure lots of brilliant stuff, I'm sure.
Let me have a look for you.
The name is familiar to me.
Elephant Man, he was a cinematographer.
Right.
Directed, he did Tales from the Crypt, Dark Tower, Doctor and the Devils, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, that's TV series. In terms of movies, Son of Dracula, The Creeping Flesh, Trog. He did some of The Champions, Man in the Suitcase.
I thought I'd seen his name on ITC series.
Yeah, he did The Brain. He's definitely in that sort of. He did The Saint as well. He's in all that sort of business. Very good, very good.
Yeah, it's a very solidly directed story. Also, who is the guy who plays the inspector? Is it Nigel Green? Is it?
I don't know. I'll double check again for you.
He's an outstanding actor who played Nayland Smith. Yeah, Nayland Smith in some of the Fu Manchu films, or at least one of them.
He's in Zulu, wasn't he?
Yeah, great actor. He's Colour Sergeant Bourne in Zulu. Yes, of course. He's one of the two. Yes. Is he Ross? No, he's not Ross. He's the other one, isn't he?
He's the other one in that one. Yeah, he's Major something or another.
Dolby.
You got it. Well done.
Yeah. I'm so pleased with myself for remembering a character name from the Ipcris file.
But it's got some good. You've got the Holy Two with Cushing and Lee, but you've also got Michael Gough, who's great. I think he's a
very
actor.
Small part though. He plays the auctioneer, doesn't he?
He does, but he's very good. It's good to have him in it. Maurice Good, Frank Forsyth.
And who's that? It's with Wymark, Patrick Wymark, is it? Who plays the guy who sells the dodgy stuff?
Oh, the great Patrick Wymark in that. He was really good. Well, I love that. The guy who sells the stuff is great, but I did love the caretaker as well.
Oh yes, he
was a shifty son.
Who's the name of the actor who plays the caretaker?
Let me find out.
He's been around a lot, but Patrick Wymark is, of course, in our world, famous for being in Where Eagles Dare. And not to spoil it for anyone, but actually spoil it for everyone, he's the traitor.
Surprise, Sir Ruddy Plies, eh? I don't know. I'm going to assume it's Peter Woodthorpe.
Oh,
because it's the only. He's not credited as the caretaker. But he's the only one as a character who name I didn't recognise. I'm going to assume that's him.
Yeah, good cast. What is that whole bit with the Russian roulette and the judge and the red room and the gas? What is that? Is that like that happens in the middle of the film? Explain that to me.
I can't remember it, funnily enough, but
Did I have some sort of hallucination? Is it meant to be an hallucination? An hallucination?
I mean, I watched it. I should know. I watched it yesterday.
He gets dragged out. Suddenly, these two guys come to his house and say, you're under arrest, and they won't tell him what he's under arrest for. They take him away in a car, and they take him into a room, and there's a High Court judge sitting there who insists that he attempts to blow his brains out with a pistol 3 times to see whether there's a bullet in the chamber. And then send him off.
Yes, that bit, yeah.
What's that?
Yes, I completely, yeah. I think it must have been some kind of hallucination from the skull.
Because he wakes up and none of it seems to have happened.
Because I think the skull's like the skull essentially is the skull of a sadist, isn't it? And so maybe a kind of sadistic thing to do would be to make him hallucinate, because I think he's becoming obsessed with the skull. He's becoming obsessed, and that skull is almost torturing him by surrounding him with death, isn't it? It's surrounding him, with his
It's
friends.
just that sequence feels like padding to me, because when he's being taken to this strange place, there's a lot of shots of him in the car looking at the guys next to him. You get these shots of these guys who are not doing anything, and then you get a shot of the back of the driver's head for quite some time as well. I think we're really trying to pad this out, folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that there's padding. Yeah, I forgot all about that's the thing. It just goes to show, I just associated that with a different film.
Yeah, well, exactly. It does seem to be from another film.
No,
I also thought
strange.
what was really interesting
Zone.
is that when... Yes, definitely. When Patrick Wymark shows Peter Cushing the skull to start with, there's a thing where Patrick Wymark's talking about it in the background and Peter Cushing stays in the foreground, and Peter Cushing does a brilliant thing of trying not to show that he is somehow supernaturally attracted to the skull, doesn't he? And there's just a reaction on his face, and then he just sort of rubs his hand on the back of his neck and then clutches his brow very slightly, and I thought, I don't think the director told you to do any of those things, Peter Cushing. I think, Peter Cushing, that you're a very good actor, and you thought, I'm going to put this in, you know what I mean? I love that level of detail in a performance. It's something that is essentially a load of old trash.
I think like you said earlier, I think that's what carries off, these old horror films, really, is the quality of the performances and a lot of these people. I mean, Peter Cushing was a master at, in the similar way of the kind of William Hartnell thing of hands by the face and subtle things like that.
Yes.
Peter Cushing was all about that, wasn't he? And moving, and yeah, no, you're completely right there. I mean, I can imagine it must have been really nice for those two to just have another job together, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, another job.
Well, how often had they worked together at that point?
I don't know. That's the thing, because you think of them as always working together, but I wonder how many times they have worked together. And I know that it was a different thing for Christopher Lee. You
should ask the internet that question.
How many? Yeah, I will do. I know that they were great friends in real life, and
yes.
they both had a love of cartoons. And the last time they saw each other in real life was when Christopher Lee brought round a video of Looney Tunes cartoons to Peter Cushing's house, and they just sat and just laughed out. That was the thing. They said that they whenever they watched it, they both just had uncontrollable laughter. They found it just so charming. Which I think, I read that a couple of days ago. I thought that was just so lovely,
Yes.
How many times?
A bit like us watching old Doctor Who.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
So we don't laugh quite so much.
No, we sort of just do impressions of everything over and over again. How many times have Christopher Lee, I just wrote Christmas
So the
Lee.
last time that Benji Clifford saw Nick Briggs alive, he went over to his place with an old kinematograph of Revenge of the Cybermen. The Cybermen.
And they spent most of it pretending to be the
Christopher
cyber leader.
Robbie.
Christopher
Yes.
Robbie, yeah. Most of it going on about that. What's that sneaky so-and-so that was in the other
Kelman.
thing? Kelman, yes.
Kelman wants gold.
Who gives a great performance. Yeah. Okay. Films in which both Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing appear. Hamlet, Moulin Rouge, Alexander the Great, The Curse of Frankenstein, Dracula, Hound of the Baskervilles, what a film.
Oh, of course, yes.
The Mummy, not such a good film. The Devil's Agent, The Gorgon, Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, She, Hammer.
Oh, of course,
She,
She,
Hammer film,
yeah. There was a fantastic version of that on BBC Radio, on Radio 4 Extra.
Oh, really?
You can get on BBC Sounds, yeah, that I did some announcing for, just introducing it on the Seventh Dimension on Radio 4 Extra. I really reckon, with Tim McInerney playing the
great.
Peter Cushing part. It's really good. Anyway, sorry, yes.
No, very good, very good. I'm going to have to check that out. Night in the Big Heat, Scream with Scream Again, One More Time, The House That Dripped Blood, great film. I Monster, Dracula AD 1972. Oh, I didn't like that one. They did
loads together,
They did loads, yeah. Horror Express, Nothing But Night, Creeping Flesh, Satanic Rites of Dracula, good film. Arabian Adventure, and House of the Long Shadows. There we go. Big list.
Well, they never stopped working together, did they?
No.
Brilliant.
That's really good, isn't it?
I'm giving it 4 stars. 4 stars, 4 exclamation marks, sorry.
Yeah, the logician in me I am a logician. The logician, sorry, I was just being Eric Klieg, master of the world. The logician in me would give it a 4 out of 5, but I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 just because I love it.
Right. The logician in me would give it 3.
Yeah, well,
because there's so much of it which is just staring at a skull, but it is called The Skull. So I think what you expect from a film, if you saw a film that was called The Skull and there were no shots of a skull in it, or just a few shots of a skull, I think you'd be quite cross. So given that it's called The Skull, seeing the skull quite a lot is one of the bare minimum requirements, I would suggest.
Now, I went to see The Skull, and I was very disappointed because it was just a big advert for Skull Lager. With a load of Vikings running around, but equally, it could have just been a whole film called The Skull where they would just all kept going on about an Austin Maxi or something. But it's a silly load of old codswallop, but I enjoy it. So
we recommend it for post Halloween.
Definitely, yeah. If you've got some horror left in you, give it a go. It's non-committal horror, good fun.
Shall we call Jamie Anderson?
Let's do it.
See if he's in. No idea if he is. Oh. Hello. Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye. That just sounded like the end. We've been watching The Skull, an Amicus horror movie starring Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Only 50% of those words mean anything to me.
Which ones?
Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, and starring.
Oh, right.
Horror. Otherwise, no idea.
The Skull.
Well, I know what they mean as English words. I don't know the film.
Yes, I'd never seen it before. It's one of Benji's little favourites.
It's a good film.
Oh. Well.
And I've been talking about how I'm not a huge fan of horror.
Sorry.
You just open a Coca-Cola. With a little bit of advertising there for some major brand that will never give us any money. I was just reminded, by the way, I watched Lost in Space. I'm rewatching the new Lost in Space, and Oreos clearly sponsored it because there's a whole thing in it about saving Oreo cookies. Outrageous.
Oh,
anyway, what's your view on horror stuff? How are you feeling about it?
Well, I love horror.
Do you?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Unfortunately, I find it funny, which is probably not the intention of most people who make horror films.
Well, I think that's what drunk teenagers watch horror movies for.
Yeah, but I become a drunk teenager. I have become a drunk teenager by becoming an adult. Whoops.
Okay, what are your favourite horror movies then?
Well, weirdly, you know the, I guess it would have been the late 90s or early 2000s remake of House on Haunted Hill?
Do you know
that one?
I've not seen it. No.
It was very much in the era of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and all those silly things, which I also quite enjoyed as a teenager.
Oh, makes me feel so old.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Dad. But I also have quite a penchant for the Saw films, believe it or not.
Oh, I wouldn't even start. Would you, Benji?
I'm not big on the Saw films myself.
I mean, I can stop talking if you like, but The Cube. Do you know The Cube?
Yeah, awful.
I mean, it's so bad it's good. I mean,
it's not. I don't think it's bad. I just find it really unpleasant.
Yeah, well, I mean, the pre-titles bit where the guy is
sliced,
cubed by a dropping grid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gross, but I saw that and burst out laughing. Oh, and Event Horizon. Now that is one I don't laugh at. That's great. Love Event Horizon.
Yes, I really hate Event Horizon with a
that's
passion.
why we said that before, and I remember you a dry heaving when I said I liked it. So.
I mean, I think it. Yeah. Have you seen Event Horizon, Benji?
No.
Who was the director?
I can't remember, but do you want me to look it up?
Well, it's just that they were rumoured to be someone who was bringing back Doctor Who or doing a Doctor Who movie at some point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And everyone said, oh, yeah, Event Horizon, that would be great. I thought, blimey, don't make Doctor Who like that. I wouldn't be able to watch it.
Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes. How about that? Same surname.
Strange that. Yeah, don't let them Andersons near anything, especially Doctor Who. But Richard Gregory did a lot of the model work on it.
Oh, brilliant.
A lot of the effects work. So it's a bit of a favourite for that reason too.
Yes. Oh, well, that was an interesting insight into your horror.
Very good, yeah.
Penchant. Can you have a plural of penchant? Penchants. Pensions.
Pension.
People often say penchant, don't they, instead of penchant?
Well, I heard a well-known MP saying impasse instead of impasse, which I thought was interesting the other day.
Yes, they weren't French, were they?
No.
You might be able to tell from my outrageous French accent. Benji, have you got a random one for him?
Yeah, I have, yeah. What was something you loved but never really took off or ended before its time?
That's a bit of a hard one.
That could be anything, couldn't it? Not just TV or films, but a particular kind of soap powder or...
I mean, can I say Space Precinct? Is that allowed? I mean, I know that's a bit on-brand and self-promotional.
Listen, you're here for no money. Why not?
Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show, the home of self-promoting Jamie Anderson. Space Precinct, a dad show from the mid-90s, which I really loved. And it just hit its stride around episodes 18 and 19 out of 24. And then it wasn't renewed. And it was so many things that went wrong that were not the fault of the show or its key creatives. I think it could have been amazing, but cut short.
What went wrong?
What didn't go wrong? Be an easier thing to answer. I mean, they had a production designer who hated science fiction. They had financiers who stole the money.
Oh my god.
Is that a good enough start for you?
Yeah. And what's more, the whole cast got food poisoning every day of filming. No.
Ted Shackelford got his face injured on the 4th day of filming.
He was one of the leads, was he?
He was of Knots Landing fame, who played lead Lieutenant Brogan. Bit of a shame, really.
Yeah.
It always had great prosthetics, though, didn't it? Great masks and everything.
Again, Richard Gregory, would you believe? The name that keeps coming up. And a Doctor Who connection, obviously.
Yeah, because he did the Cybermen, didn't he? And he also did Slave from Blake 7, I was informed recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Omega.
Oh, was that a cat? Not Omega.
Yes. No, not Omega the cat. Omega the cat. And he had RJG in his chest plate in the design there. You look carefully. Anyway, this is not on the topic of what you asked.
Well, there's no
Can I ask
rule.
a random question of you and Benji?
Okay.
What odd smell do you both enjoy?
Benji, you go for that. What odd smell do you enjoy?
I absolutely love the smell of petrol. Love it.
Interesting, but standard.
Well, the first thing that springs to mind is creosote, which they don't make anymore to put on fences.
They do make it, but you can only buy it commercially. There's an interesting fact for you.
Well, I love the smell of static, like static train sets and things, you know.
Is it ozone? That's what they say in the Doctor Who stories, isn't it? The Daleks. You'd like to stand next to a real Dalek then, because that's what they'd smell like as they move.
Smell really nice.
Not good for you, ozone.
Isn't it?
Is it not?
Highly reactive, yeah.
Oh, what's highly reactive mean? It just goes, oh.
Well, it's 3 oxygen molecules attached to each other, isn't it? And oxygen likes to be in pairs, not 3. So one of the oxygens breaks off and then reacts with things to make oxides with, chemicals from your body or the interior of your lungs. It can be, not very nice.
Oh. We were almost on to one of Jamie's boring subjects there, weren't we?
Scientist.
And on that note...
Well, thank you very much. There is another smell. I can't think what it is. No. Odd smell.
No, I can't think of anything else. I don't know.
No.
Oh, well.
Never mind. All right. Well, thanks, Jamie.
Thanks for having me for the horror, odour, chemistry thing chat.
You're welcome. It's been a great pleasure. Funny smell around here.
To the next one.
Cheerio.
Bye.
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 He's gone. Well, that was rather interesting,
That's a
wasn't
very
it?
good little avenue into discussion there, isn't it?
Well, coming up soon will be my son, Benedict, better known as Ben Briggs, who's just going to be talking about something. I can't remember what it was. Recorded it a few weeks ago, actually. It'll be a DVD, I think. Yeah. But anyway, listen out for that. What are we going to do next week, Benji?
I don't know. I feel like I've chose last time, so it's,
Oh,
anything,
yeah.
anything tingling your molecules? We'll just listen to that noise next week. We'll be commenting on that noise.
That noise. I'm just thinking the things I bought on DVD recently. So, yes, here's one that I know we both got, which is Paul Temple.
Well, I think that'll be good fun. There's lots going on in that, isn't it? It's a really interesting and slightly obscure choice, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big mainstream show. It's what Derek Sherwin went on to produce after Doctor Who in the 60s. He got promoted to do a grown-up show.
See, I'd not seen it before until you very kindly sent a copy to me. And I opened it. I thought, what's this? This looks good.
Well, it was one of those things where it was such a bargain, and I'd already got it, so I thought I'll make use of this bargain.
Well,
I also thought it's right up your Strasser, mate.
Well, I'm so jealous you get all these good bargains, because the only second-hand shop I've got pretty much sells everything at the same price. So it's just like,
rubbish.
Great. Yeah.
No, our Market DVD store. Come to the Market DVD store in Bridport. There's computer games and Blu-rays as well. It's all really dirt cheap. It's incredible.
Great.
It's right, and it's almost exactly right outside our house as well. Certainly on Saturdays, Saturday and Wednesday, the Market is on Saturday. Sometimes on Wednesdays they go further down the street when there are a few. But I'm going into too much detail, I can tell.
So you're going to get a fan club outside the house now.
Yes, we'll find the DVD store. We'll know where Nick Briggs is. The lucky thing is that no one's really interested in me, so that's how I get away with saying things like that. So that's what we're going to do. Paul Temple. Francis Durbridge created Paul Temple. Francis Durbridge is an immensely popular writer, popular thriller writer. Wrote 10 or more thrillers for the stage, constantly touring around. People flock to see it. Second only to Agatha Christie, really, in terms of thriller popularity. So that's why Paul Temple had been massively successful as a film series, at the movies, lots of black and white Paul Temple movies, and on radio as well. Hugely successful on radio.
So this
I think
was a natural
maybe the films
progression
came
then.
out on the radio. Yeah, it had to happen with Francis Matthews playing Paul Temple. So there you go.
Who's brilliant, by the way, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's going to be a really fun thing to cover. So, on that note, let's come in nice and close here. So, yes, you do. Yeah.
Just resting my nose on the pop shield.
Yeah, show more. There we go.
Oh, yes.
Well, it's goodbye from me.
How come you're resting my nose on the...
Yeah, why is your nose here?
I don't know. I'll just bring it back. And goodbye from me. And now it's time to go straight over to Ben Briggs for the latest on what's going on in his mind. Right. So, of the batch of things we've been looking at over the last few weeks, here's the final thing.
We have. Do you want to do it?
No, because this section is all about you and not me.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, it's sorry. I like YouTube. I play a PlayStation. As you said, it was all about me. So.
Carry on.
No. I'll just carry on with this. So it's the Fifth Doctor, which I can never remember. Peter Davison. I remembered. Finally. It doesn't say on the front like the rest of them. It's a PG this time, because it has like the circle blue hexagonal. That's a hexagon, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Hexagonal PG, and then it has the yellow triangle PG.
I feel this is a very important detail you're bringing up here.
It's a PG.
And what's
and
it called?
Earth Shock. It doesn't have it normally. It's just.
No, this was a DVD that was off the front of a magazine, wasn't it? It's not a regular BBC release.
I mean, I didn't buy it. You did. So.
Yes. You don't buy anything, Ben. He looks crestfallen. Well, it's true. You're still that sort of age, aren't you, really, where we buy things for you.
True. And the reason I really like it is because there's androids and he has to defuse a bomb while like these androids are shooting at him. And I think it links in with like a Cyberman ship as well. And yeah. Is there 2 discs? Oh no, just one.
What are the Cybermen like in this compared with how they were in, say, Tomb of the Cybermen, which you spoke about a while ago?
Completely different. They have evolved and they have like the ear things around them. And they have like this vest kind of thing, like the original ones, but a bit more compact, less bulky. They speak a bit more normal than the original ones.
How did the original Cybermen speak?
No, I can't do it.
You used to do it. I was just trying to prompt you to do that. Okay.
You can't prompt me today.
Okay. And these ones, how do they speak?
Kind of a normal but more gritty voice, mixed with a normal kind of newer Cyberman voice at the same time.
Any favourite scenes?
When Peter Davison's defusing the bomb when all the androids are there. Because it's like he's opened this rock up in the wall or something, and it's like this weird like hardware kit he's defusing. It's just interesting to watch, and the sounds are quite nice. Like it's just like, it sounds a bit like when you're pressing plastic and taking your fingers off, like, and it's very satisfying.
Any other scenes you like?
Well, I seem to remember there was green blood from the androids killing humans, or humanoids. I don't know
the
why.
Cybermen had green blood.
Did they? I saw green blood somewhere.
Sure.
Yes, I did. And I do not remember. Oh, and they were in a cave. That's why he was opening up a rock to defuse the bomb.
You haven't seen this one so many times, have you?
No, I haven't really.
You did like it a lot.
I did.
I mean, you picked it, didn't you?
I liked the plot a lot.
How would you recommend it to someone?
it has androids that are trying to take down humanoids or humans and there's this particular star that this boy is carrying around with him, which is one of Peter Davison's companions, and that star is used to scrape Cyberman's air breathing something or other, but it made him suffocate, or made the machine suffocate the Cyberman.
What was it you said about this character?
Earlier. It looks like he's wearing a wig because there's this one black line that's going across his head, and it just looks like one of those the end of the net for a wig. And if I just look really closely, you can just see it. And I just thought, is that a wig? Because I can see this one line that isn't hair.
Which character is it?
I don't know his name. I can't remember. Does it say?
No, if I tell you it begins with A.
Apple?
Yes, that's right. The Doctor's companion, Apple. Adric.
Adric.
Do you remember that
seems
name?
to ring a bell.
Yeah. Well, thank you for summing up all these interesting items over the last few weeks.
Yep.
What's next up for you? What are you going to be up to in the coming weeks?
Drawing, playing a bit of Fortnite, finding some new computer games to play, watching a bit of YouTube. Make that a lot of YouTube.
Yeah, because you don't really watch television, do you? You watch YouTube?
No, I watch YouTube.
What sort of things do you mainly watch on YouTube? Can you explain that?
Not really, it's just mixed.
Well,
I watch
give me some
Fortnite players. I watch some Dude Perfect videos. Their series called Overtime, which is like them doing a TV show with different sections. Like there's one called it's like where they have buzzers and they vote. They all get an item and they do different weeks, like Budget Week, where you can have only under $25/pounds because they're in America, so they say dollars.
I seem to remember you were watching one where they play people music and dare them not to dance.
Oh no, not dare them, but say it's a try not to dance challenge, and if you get the amount of stuff you get wrong, either you get squirted in the face with water or something minor like that, but funny still.
Are you like that? Do you find it incredibly irresistible to dance?
I find it incredibly irresistible to just stay still for a long period of time, but dancing I can resist.
You take after me, I think.
Not really.
Ben's doing a bit of Orange Justice now.
Which is a Fortnite dance.
That is the sound of Orange Justice in a seat. Well, what a pleasure it's been to have you on the Benji and Nick show. Have you enjoyed it?
Yes.
Would you like to come and do it again at some point?
Definitely.
What sort of things would you like to talk about, do you think?
Maybe a few more DVDs, maybe 4 figures this time. Maybe just get a few more objects that are related more. Goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.